What is going on, my beautiful people? Welcome to yet again another episode of the Pivot Mindset Podcast. My name is Justin. I'm your host, and I'm excited to have you for yet again another episode. We believe here that life is all about the pivots, and those who decide to make the pivots decide to become successful. Success is a deliberate decision. You make that choice. As you listen to this podcast, I believe that you are making that choice to be successful, and whatever that means for you. Listen, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. Always, I'm going to ask you every single episode, give this podcast a rating and review, and please share this episode with 5 of your friends. We would please love to continue to get this message out there. So if you would do me a favor and send this podcast to 5 of your friends, anyone that you think could be just encouraged, strengthened, that could, like if this episode and this podcast is helping and serving you, I ask that you would just share it. Just let people know what you're listening to and let them see if it's something that could be a good fit for them as well. So I appreciate you continuing to share this, continue to give the podcast a rating and review. And as always, like if there's an aspects of this podcast that you're feeling, tag me in it. You can find me at _Justin Carter on Instagram, _JustinCarter on Instagram. And I'll be sure to shout you out. All right, man. And then also, I want to shout out my brother T. Bailey, my brother Terrence. I'm wearing his Ethic Race gear, his Ethic Race merch. Man, he's been killing it on the clothing brands tip. He's had a clothing brand, man, for I think a decade at least now. So I just wanted to shout him out. I believe his website is just ethicrace.com, ethicrace.com. And I'll also drop it in the show notes in case you guys want to check out his website. Go cop some merch. Go get some gear. He's got great, phenomenal gear, all that kind of stuff. So go check him out. All right, man. But let's dive into this episode. So on this episode, I want to talk to you about proximity. That's right. I want to talk to you about proximity. Proximity is such an important word, especially in this day and age, because what I've realized is that it's very hard to accomplish anything that you don't have proximity to. A lot of us have and inspire to do amazing things in our lives, but it's very hard to accomplish anything that we don't have close proximity to. It's just the nature of it. It's just the byproduct of what happens in the earth. Is when it comes to you accomplishing anything that you want to accomplish in your life, I need you to have closer proximity. And proximity is kind of a dual. It's got multiple terms to it, right? Like, we could say proximity from you personally being close to your dream. That's proximity. But also, proximity is also what your interpretation is based on how close you are to your dream. And I want to tell you that you're a lot closer than you think you are. Like, lean in. I want you to, wherever you are, if you're driving, if you listen to this while you're working out, just lean into this. You are a lot closer than you think you are. And if you realized how close you really are to the goal that you want to accomplish, every single day that you woke up, you would move with a different sense of urgency. You would have a different passion. You would have a different desire. You would have a different fire that ignites you to move that much closer to the goal. And so if you live life right now like what you want is so far away, you're going to go through it taking your time. You're just going to gingerly go through life. But if I told you that the minute that you listen to this episode, you're going to have $20 million in the bank, what would you do, right? You would hurry up and listen to the episode so you could finally get to that $20 million, right? And so proximity is everything. We've got to understand that we are our proximity, like not just our circles. I've got an episode where we talk about circles. That's super important. But the reason why the circle is important is because the proximity that the circle affords you. And so one of the quickest ways to help you accomplish and get what you want to get out of life is to lean into the proximity factors, right? And what is that? Proximity is having the ability to experience a thing with all 5 of your senses, right? Your touch, taste, smell, your hands, your feeling, and your eyes, right, to be able to see it. I got it. Whew, that was close. Almost got the senses, right? But it's the ability to deliver all of your senses in that thing. One of my mentors told me this. He said, Hey, man, one of the quickest ways to manifest whatever it is you want out of life is to brainwash yourself in that thing. And how do you brainwash yourself? You brainwash yourself in that thing by changing your psyche-conscious and your conscientious mind, and your subconscious mind, and brainwashing your subconscious mind to really not knowing the difference from what is in the future versus what you've got now. So how do I do that? So one of the things that I talk about is like what it is to truly brainwash yourself. And that is like blanketing and surrounding yourself about the kind of life that you want. And that could be going to test drive the car that you want to drive. That could be going to, maybe you can't afford to eat out of some of these restaurants, but maybe it's going to just sit in the restaurant and drink some water and know, what does it smell like? What does it sound like? What kind of music is going on the loudspeakers in here? Maybe it is being able to try on a very expensive suit that you probably can't afford or nowhere close to it, but you just want to feel the fabrics on your skin and you want to know what it is to be measured for something like that, right? Maybe it's like touching the steering wheel of your favorite vehicle, or it could be like walking through your dream house and, you know, going to open houses. Like, nobody says that you got to be able to afford the house to go to the open house. You probably want to be able to afford it if you try to put an offer on the house, right? But you don't have to afford the house just to go to the open house. You could just walk into the open house, right? And just look at, you know, the multi-million-dollar homes or whatever it is you desire, right? You've got to get closer proximity to what you want, right? It could be a spouse. Like, you may be somebody who's like, man, I'm ready for a spouse. Well, guess what? You got to get close proximity to them. You're not just going to do it at home. You've got to find a way to get closer proximity to everything that you want. And once you get closer proximity to it, your subconscious mind begins to build desire. Your subconscious mind begins to give you this thing called desire. I can like the car as much as I want while it's in the magazine. But if I like that car and then I go sit in it and I actually crank the thing up and I feel the roar of the engine, you know, shaking my torso, and like I feel, get the adrenaline dump from sitting in the car, like all those things, right? Now I've engaged this thing with all 5 of my senses. And so now I have some sparked desire that can help me and brainwash my mind into doing the thing necessary to truly drive out the kind of desire that I've got, right? And so here's the great thing, man, is the Bible talks about what it is to delight yourself in the Lord. If you delight yourself in the Lord, then he will give you the desires of your heart. If you delight yourself in the Lord, that God will give you the desires of your heart. And man, I used to think that it's Psalms 37:4. If you delight yourself in the Lord, then God will give you the desires of your heart. So God will actually give you the desires. Like, not the desire meaning that he'll give you what you want, but the desires now will start being God kinds of desires. And you will start to like hang in what it is to be inspired by a desirable thing that God wants you to have. Not a thing that you want you to have, but a desirable thing that God has placed on you. And I believe that God will place things on you that are like encourage you and that strengthen you and that excite you, right? And so if you're delighting yourself in the Lord, he's giving you some of these desires, right? Maybe he's giving you the desire from the spouse. Maybe he's giving you the desire for your family. Maybe he's giving you a desire to move to a different place. Like, whatever that is, he's giving you that desire. And so because you've delighted in him, he's giving you now that desire. And you've got to know that those desires are coming from the Lord. Sometimes the challenge that you may be having right now is not sure who or where those desires are coming from. But can I tell you that if you're delighting yourself in the Lord, that those desires are actually coming from him, that he's actually giving you those desires, because the life that he has for you, that he's using those desires to help be the pathway to getting the thing that you want. You didn't know, like, you thought that like that desire for getting that Porsche was yours, but that desire actually came from the Lord, because there would be somebody at a Porsche dealership that you would need to touch 2 years from now. And so he needed to put that desire on the inside of you so that then you would then have the wherewithal to put the work in to be able to get the resources to be able to go on for the Porsche. And so when you got to the Porsche dealership, the person that he wanted you to encourage or talk to or motivate or inspire 2 years from now was sitting there waiting on you to be the kind of person that you always were supposed to be. And so the desires that God has given you, best believe that they're not, that he could give you all the desires, right? But he's not just giving you the desire just to please you, but there's something in the path of the desire. There's someone on the opposite side or on the other end of that desire. And if you don't move on those desires, if you don't be the full authentic 100% of the person that you're supposed to be, you could, one, be missing out on such more of an opulent life, but two, you could be missing out on truly reaching people in a way that you never thought was possible. Proximity. I need you to have proximity to everything that you want. Proximity is the game changer. Proximity is the biggest difference maker. I rode on a private jet some years ago, and once I rode on that private jet, I was like, whoa, it gave me proximity. I seen how people moved. I seen why people would rent a jet or buy a jet, right? I seen the luxury that you got with it. I seen the time importance and who people that could afford jets, how much expensive their time was, and why the jet was actually a really inexpensive buy, because if you think about how much they make per hour and if they spend all that time in an airport, like spending time in an airport catching a commercial plane was way more expensive than buying the jet. So it becomes that play, right? But it's all proximity. How close are you to the thing that you want? How close are you to realizing what you actually want? And so if you want to change your life, you've got to change your proximity. And if we want to change our lives, we got to get in the habit of refreshing what proximity looks like. I talked about on Instagram Live not too long ago on how if you want to get from being unstuck, one of the best things that you can do is completely throw away your routine. And when you completely throw away your routine, right? Because often we have routines that aren't serving us any longer. Like the routines may have served us to the point that we're at. The routines might have got us to the place that we're at, but the routine won't take us further than that. So if you want something different, you got to do something different, right? And it's getting outside of the comfort zone. And so if you completely dismantle your routine and switch that routine up, it will allow you a different proximity. What do I mean? Like it could be like you've been going to that same gym for way too long. You've been taking that same route for way too long. Maybe you need to get rid of that car. Maybe the car is great, but I'm not saying buy a more expensive car, but maybe you need to get the same price of a car, but just a different car. Maybe you need to live in a different neighborhood. Maybe you need live in a different state. Maybe you need to go get a different job, right? Like you may have to get in the habit of like dating yourself or just going out by yourself and just hanging out, right? Or going to new places, right? It's the routine that has to change. And when you change that routine, it often changes your proximity because you start to bump up against the things that you weren't used to. One of my friends talks about what it is to become a tourist in your own town, like in your own city, right? How often have you just been a tourist in your own city? Most people, they might live in the city that they grew up in, and they don't go out and do new things and different experiences, and they haven't experienced truly all that there is to experience. I've been blessed to have moved into different states, and I've always kind of shot myself in the foot, because when you move to a different place, you come in with the heart of a tourist, right? You Google, hey, what's the best restaurants? And then you just start trying places, right? You like start to look at the reviews and like, oh, this one got really good reviews. What is the last time you did that in your own city? When was the last time you did that in your own, like the place you've been living at forever? Like, do you think you know all the good places? Like, could there be a spot that you haven't tried yet that could be worth trying? Right. And so proximity, you got to change your proximity. If you want something different, you got to change what you're close to. Right. And you've got to stop letting things that aren't of you be close to you. I'll say that again. You've got to stop letting things that aren't of you be close to you. Everything that gets closer to you gets closer to you, right? Like anything that's close to you gets the ability to impute itself deep down within you and change your identity. And so we got to change our proximity, family. So I just want to encourage you on that. Like if you want to take that next step, if you want to go a step further, change your proximity. Swap out what's near to you. Change your routine. And why don't you give that a shot and let me know how it works. All right. So listen, that's all I got for you in this episode. Thank you for checking out this podcast. Remember that we believe that life is all about the pivots, and those who decide to make the pivots decide to become successful. Peace.